Sometimes thoughts keep me awake for no apparent reason. It's the price of being a writer. Words come to you at weird times. If you're lucky, they're coherent thoughts, and not your brain asking you in the wee hours of the morning, when was the last time you've had funnel cake? But I had one of those thoughts last night, thinking about something D&D related, and I have to put it to paper. Please don't get me wrong, I like funnel cake, but not enough to make a video about it. Besides, if you get funnel cake at the livestock show, you have to share it with other people. Which is one of the reasons why I prefer the chicken fried honey glazed bacon strips. But back on topic. I've been watching the commentary on Odd, the next version of D&D, and I'm watching two groups tear each other to shreds with demands that will make the game impossible to write. But both sides will scream bloody murder if they don't get their way without exception. I'm talking about the D&D race paradox. The problem I'm referring to is about some freelance game editors who don't like putting in any physical trait that would give one race an advantage in an area compared to another race. Hence why Wizards is kicking racial abilities to backgrounds, which creates its own problems. What stat increase do you give to the athlete background? Mike Tyson is strength. Nadia Comaneci is dexterity. Roger Bannister is constitution. We're not allowed to give the stat bonus to races because that's biodeterminism. Yes, that's the point, though. Dwarves have a better constitution than elves. Dwarven breast milk is 40 proof. It makes total sense that the minimum constitution for a dwarf is 5 compared to everybody else's 3. A dwarf with a con of 20 isn't unfeasible for starting characters. It's a different species. The term race is a holdover from Tolkien's influence. A Wookiee will be stronger than a Jawa. A stock Pakled isn't going to hold a candle to a Vulcan in terms of logic. But I know what you're saying right now, and the answer is I try not to listen to myself to avoid touching myself inappropriately because of the sound of my voice. And also, yes, that means some races are naturally better at things. But that's not fair, according to the voices on various social media sites, especially the ones that rhyme with the word bitter. Life isn't fair. Doesn't matter what race you are, if you're 5 foot even, you're not playing in the NBA. Kicking stat bonuses to the backgrounds will change the debate to another topic, but the argument will stay the same. You get plus X to this field, but that's not fair. I want to be more different than the other different people. So the DM has to adjust the game to make somebody happy. The argument hasn't changed since the discussion was about whether racial stat bonuses were boring or unfair. Now the point in the book where the debate starts has changed. For every example they give for the stats for a background, origin now, you can easily make a counter-argument with an example. Entertainer gets plus 2 charisma, plus 1 dexterity. But what if you're playing someone based on the character 1 from City of Lost Children? He's an entertainer, there's no denying that. But he's not that charismatic, and he's certainly not very nimble, as he's a strongman played by Ron Perlman. It's a great movie, by the way, very similar in style to Dark City, only all in French. Check it out, it's a trip. My point does stand, though. You're never going to put those bonuses in a way that doesn't make somebody unhappy, because some people don't want to just house rule it. They want the rules changed to their version of the game. I don't allow numerous races or classes in my games because they don't fit in the setting or the style of what I'm playing. But I don't demand that the game be changed so that nobody's allowed to play a tiefling or a sorcerer in the main game, though they should totally be dropped anyways. You're not going to make those people happy until the rules are you get all these bonuses and you can put them anywhere. That kicks the stat bonus to class. You get plus 2 to any stat. Okay, my cleric's putting it in wisdom, because that's what a cleric needs most. We've brought back the prime requisite from Beckme. Instead of telling everybody your prime requisite goes up by plus 2 after you've rolled your dice or applied your boring cookie cutter point buy or stat array, get rid of the ability score increase at first level. If everybody's primary stat goes up by the same amount, increasing it's no point. What you roll, that's what you get. You don't get any more points to spend. The array doesn't increase. It has the same effect mechanically, and you can remove all those extra words from the rule book. Another trend is that no one can have a negative trait in a race because it makes it unfair. All the negative traits so far seem to be a balancing issue. Everybody had 4 racial abilities in 5.0. If you weren't a human or a halfling, dark vision almost always filled 1 slot. Later races filled another slot with some starting spell, so you had 2 racial abilities, plus a spell and dark vision. But some races got a 5th ability, so they got a disadvantage to balance it out. Most of the time, sunlight sensitivity, which was needlessly complicated. Just say bright light, the equivalent of a sunny day, and then the drow gets hit with a penalty. Easy enough. But drow being drow, you first have to find a way to get rid of their built-in Ray-Ban sunglasses because they wanted all the fabulous bonus stuff, but they didn't want the disadvantage that came with it. Hence drow sunglasses, which completely negates the sunlight penalty, can't be stolen, destroyed, smudged, and automatically deployed just in time before they suffer any penalty. They turn up every stinking game. Do you want to make the races stand out and different? Racial caps. You don't have to penalize anybody. The solution is pretty straightforward. If your race starts with a statistical increase in its ability, your racial maximum for that ability goes to 22 instead of the standard 20. Everybody's equal. Some races are just more equal than others. This means the strongest Jawa will never be as strong as the strongest Wookiee. That's intentional. It also makes races stand out from each other, so you don't strip out the physical characteristics, leaving you with just Star Trek aliens with extra latex on their forehead. But where's the paradox? Well, it turns out there's another group shouting from the opposite side of the argument that we can't tie cultural aspects to an entire race. They do have a point to some extent. A moon elf from Faerun should have very little in common with a Belkades elf from Glantry. So anything that mentions a specific god or similar shouldn't apply to the entire species. You can still give the elves the +2 bonus to backstab, because that completely encapsulates the elven reputation for treachery. You just can't say it's a blessing from the elven god Llanowar Leafblower from the Birthright setting. Other realms have different gods or similar. That is a very fair point. The problem is, if you strip out all the cultural aspects of a fantasy race, then it's just humans with different levels of hair and or problems getting on some roller coasters. Sure, include physical traits into the races to differentiate them and give us some cultural characteristics. Give the dwarves tremor sense instead of dark vision. If they're standing on rock, they can tell what's moving around them just from the vibrations. You can see the dwarf in the party suddenly stopping as you're moving through the cave. Hold on. 9 goblins coming from the east. The one in the back needs to lose about 20 pounds. The 4th one has a gimp leg. His left leg. No, wait. It's the right one. Kick the social abilities to subraces. It's a simple fix. You have some physical traits for the racial traits, and you have social traits for the subrace. To be an elf in Mystara, you get, say, dark vision and certain spell immunities. But the Vialia elves get the abilities to pass without trace and the stealth skill, because if you're brought into their community, you're going to be a sneaky bastard. Belkades elves might get, for example, a permanent bonus to initiative and a bonus to perform certain acrobatics, because that's how they are raised there. If you split the race into physical and social, you can also extend it. So if you want to be super duper extra special and be raised by another race, just take the physical aspects of one race and the social aspects of another. If you're going to do that, you need to move all the magical bonus stuff into the physical traits, because it doesn't matter how much your dwarf wants to be raised as a high elf, they're never going to be as good as a high elf in the magical arts. Yes, this is splitting the difference down the middle, but that's what the new edition probably needs. Say, 3 physical and 2 social traits. That way, if you want to min-max the crap out of your character, the game has rules for it. Just remember to hype up the fact that you're isolated from both of your races, and you've had to overcome both of their prejudices through the power of your fabulous personality, just like everybody else that hands me a 12-page background. The anti-culture side doesn't want an entire race to be determined by its stereotypes, but that's why we have stereotypes. They want their characters not to have to adapt to the cultural norms of their species and reject those norms outright. But if society didn't raise them in the way of their subrace, how do they know what they want to rebel against? Once you've gotten the training in something from your culture that you find abhorrent, that's when you buck the system. Your drow will suddenly realize that he's the baddie when he settles down to sleep after completing his mandatory training in the penis flenser. You promise never to flense anyone's private parts, but you're still going to have proficiency in it just in case it proves helpful later. You can have all the traits of your cultures, including dialects or a general education provided by default. Dwarves don't need to be good at mechanical jobs because a god blesses them. Maybe their brain works differently. They have a superior grasp of thinking three-dimensionally. Halflings could be naturally stealthy because the bottom of their feet has a built-in sound buffer. They don't make noise normally when walking. They're not trained in stealth, it's innate. If a race has something built in physically, add another trait to represent their culture embracing this. If someone else is adopted into their culture, they get the secondary social ability that serves as a supplement to the physical trait. But they're not going to get the synergy as if they were of that race. The kid that runs away to live with the cannibalistic elf ogres might pick up their increased sense of taste from eating the wide variety of foods they enjoy. Still, he's never going to get the ability to eat things that would otherwise be poisonous. There are a lot of people that want to chime in on the upcoming Totally Not a Playtest by Wizards of the Coast. I hope Wizards is hosting their own playtest as they did with Next compared to apparently outsourcing Odd to the players. A lot of people seem to think that they are important because they are loud. Granted, when many social sites look for the loudest or most outrageous voice online to share because hate clicks or easy clicks, you can see why people act this way. But you aren't going to please everyone. You can't please everyone, and various groups often have differing opinions that are incompatible with each other. Worse, if you try to split the difference and merge the two ideas, the groups turn hostile because if it's not 100% their way, you didn't listen to them at all. The mentality that compromise means you do everything I say without complaining doesn't help gaming as a hobby or anything for that matter. The Odd playtest will take a while, and I hope they take it slow. I also hope they give me money to make my official Mystara book for the next edition. I also hope NASA takes my advice and straps 250 Saturn V rockets to BB-35 so we can have Space Battleship Texas. But I don't see that happening either. At least she's in better shape than the Yamato guys. But I want a good game. I don't want a half-assed game or something thrown out for the member berries like they did with Spelljammer or Witchlight in terms of the LJN toys. Here's an idea. Hire some of the more successful D&D channels to look at the game, both for the mechanics and the lore. Enough people are talking about either to get a healthy mix. Ask everybody with a D&D channel with over 50,000 subscribers that are still active to help. They have large followings for a reason. They resonate with Dungeons & Dragons players, and they provide them with something the players want. Find out what that is, and then give it to the rest of the players.